You know, you got a knife combo breaker, bro. I expect there to be some sort of brain up in there.
I only jump against you.
What? Go jump right now.
The top player is here!
Oh, hello again. Back with the podcast. I've brought someone that we've had on previously. GhostChips, how's things going, man?
Hey guys, what's up?
Yeah.
I Everything's going pretty good. Uh, pretty over the moon with my recent Street Fighter stuff, and I'm currently in my exam period. Sometimes.
Now, what is that like? Has exam period, has that changed a lot since COVID happened, or is it kind of what it used to be? It's just like you're just at home studying.
Of, I'm currently at the University of Auckland, and ever since I started, all of my exams have been online,
Yeah.
like outside of a singular semester. So
Okay.
it's pretty much just like same old, same old.
Because I've said to people, like, I feel like if anyone's studying, they're being robbed of a decent education. Do you believe that, or do you actually enjoy studying from home and doing testing from home?
Um, I think a lot of the stuff that I've been learning, uh, I've gotten pretty decent at. So I think the main ones that we use are Autodesk Inventor and um ANSYS, and I've gotten pretty decent with them. So I'd say it's worth it. But obviously, like I am doing engineering, so it's more about the the job at the end of the rainbow than it
Yeah,
is about the.
no, definitely. So, if you can wrap it up, just mention a few things here and there. What's happened with you since we last caught up with you? Any new updates or things happened?
Oh, how long? That was 2019, right?
Yeah, it was practically before COVID arrived. At least it was pretty much like dead smack in that time.
Was that after my first trip to Costa Rica or before that?
I think it was. It may have been after, maybe. I think maybe after. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we had that clip of you versing Goichi, so I'm pretty. It must have been after Combo Breaker, the first one too.
Oh, yeah. Okay, no, you're definitely right. I guess I went to I went to one more international tournament that year, which was Capcom Cup, where I played in the last chance qualifier. I did pretty decently. I came 25th. I won Nets again that year.
Yeah, no
Um,
surprise, no surprise.
oh, that was my. It's weird to say, but that was my three-peat. Um, 2020, I managed to win Nets for the fourth time. 2021, we had Crush Counter. I won that, and we had Nets Online, and I won that, and Damager Cup, which I also won.
Didn't realize I was asking you. Oh, can you just list your stats? Pretty much from when we last talked to you. So yeah, won this, won that. Nah, but it's
Uh,
it's no doubt that you definitely are a prodigy, especially with Street Fighter. During that time though, like, have you kind of kept up with the grind since then? Has there been any, like, besides studying, has there been any other things you've focused on?
um, not particularly. My life was pretty much just uni and Street Fighter. I mean, I do stuff here and there, but it's not like mega time consuming in the same way that those two things are.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess like the main change up from 2019 was after Unga season one, which looking back I did win. I stopped using online as a serious training method, which um I wasn't actually able to see the results of until not too long ago.
Interesting,
Uh,
because I never thought that you did use. I didn't think you gave that much credit to online, at least with Street Fighter.
I think as I started to travel more, um, I stopped playing ranked less and less. Um, which is very evident now that I'm no longer the #1 ranked online player in New Zealand anymore. I think I'm ranked about 5th.
Really? So who? So what's the placings right now?
Online, I think the person with the most ranked points is Rich Māori Boy.
Ah, Maori boy. Yes.
I think second is Sky. Third is Terran Slayer, Mercy Pox.
Yeah.
And fourth is probably another Rich account if I had to guess. So I guess technically I'm like 4th online.
Okay. Technically fourth. Okay. Hmm. Well, coming to that, we're talking about your placings. It's Street Fighter Five. We already know we're in the end of its era. How would you describe the path between like the last season and then this big gap where there was really no notifications about the next Street Fighter installment, although there was rumors? But how did that affect like the Street Fighter scene? Because I feel like I've seen a lot of players maybe not drop off, but just not really commit as much as you kind of do when the game reaches that end cycle. Just people they're not on the grind as much.
Yeah, I think the main difference between then and now is uh Reno hasn't been grinding as hard.
Yeah.
Uh I think a lot of the players that sort of had it as their like side game stopped entering stuff.
Yeah.
Which is fair. The game's pretty much solidified itself. Like the way it is now is probably the way will be for until Street Fighter 6 comes out. So there's no banking on getting your main back or hoping your character gets more buffs or anything of the sort.
Yeah.
Um, but that's okay. I mean, I'd like to. There's some players that I'm coaching on the side. Well, not really coaching, but I give advice to.
Okay.
Some of the viewers probably will know him, but his tag is Onion.
Yes,
Uh,
Onion Desu. Yeah.
yes, he is. I'm hoping that Street Fighter 6, he'll be a big threat in that game. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Okay. We'll definitely touch on Street Fighter 6 a bit later, but with Street Fighter 5, like it, I kind of want to address the elephant in the room, in the training room. Obviously, Street Fighter's reached its end cycle. Tekken 7, my game, that's kind of the same thing. Rambats just isn't the same lately, and I don't know if it's just because of COVID, people aren't still keen to socialize, or if it's just literally because, the game's at its end, it's lost a bit of competitive edge. Because I'm only mentioning it because I feel like Rambats, it's trying so hard to kind of kick the interest back up, but especially the Street Fighter players aren't showing up like they used to.
I think the hardest part at the moment is a lack of a permanent um residence, I guess is the word. We're back to that stage of bouncing around different places. I think for the time being we have a permanent spot in Meadowbank.
Metabank, yeah.
Um, which I understand isn't like the most like there's a lot of players out in West Auckland um that find it a bit harder to get to. Like there's a train station nearby and there are buses that go through, but it's not the hotspot like Megaweb, or it's not as easy to get to as say Eden Park.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
I think in terms of Street Fighter, uh, I guess right now for Auckland, it's pretty much me, Sky, Cam, Isaac, and when they feel like playing Chopper and Jamie.
Yeah,
Uh, Outside of us six, I know I'm probably forgetting someone just off the top of my head. Um, there isn't much incentive for players to sort of come out and try and play us in tournament.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
and it's really hard to like even if they're really decently strong, like say they're like diamond level, um, it's really hard to bridge that gap between like us and them in a singular day.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Uh,
No, that's
and
fair.
I guess it's that was something that Tekken sort of didn't struggle with as much, and that like there was a range of there was a bigger range of players. Uh,
Yeah, no, I do agree with you there. I mean, like with the addition of Guilty Gear Strive and King of Fighters 15, it's added like it's good to have some fresh titles in the scene, but even then, I don't feel like that's been enough to really carry the offline scene, because obviously the numbers come from Street Fighter and Tekken, you know, two of the biggest franchises, and like it's understandable that there's not as much competitive drive in the scene, which is why I'm grateful that, you know, like majors and, you know, all these people running their own tournaments are getting announced. It just, I don't know, it still feels like it's not a honeymoon period per se the way I see it. It's more, it's just this real weird, like, I can't describe it. It's like you're just waiting, like you're waiting for something to happen, but you know nothing's coming. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's how I feel.
I think the main one of the big things that I think might bring people back to Rambats is the Tekken World Tour Dojo stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's true.
and so like with Rambats being a meta bank and Onar doing Tekken Fight Club in Mission Bay, it's not too unfeasible for, you know, say all the Tekken players go to Rambats early in the day and then head to Onar's at night. You know what I mean?
It is feasible. I do get what you mean, but I think what I'm starting to see is that I personally like Rambats because it had that competitive feel. Like you were there to work. But what I like about Onars is it's basically you get to hang out with the Tekken dudes, you know, or the street, you know, like if the Street Fighters do their thing, you hang out with the Street Fighter dudes. You don't have to feel awkward or uncomfortable. Not that you would, but I'm just saying like you're at least hanging with players that you know and that you can converse with. But then at the same time, we have our weekly, sometimes fortnightly get-togethers, and it's almost like it's taking away from Rambats, because I can just go to Onars and play for next weekend, but I won't go to Rambats and support the local scene. Because I mean, essentially, it's good. I like what Onar's doing. Like, it's really nice. It keeps us grinding, but then at the same time, it's that balance of, you know, Rambats. In my mind, I like that it's the staple hub, and if that disappears in time, then essentially what could happen is all the games just do their own separate, you know, locals or offlines, and it's not as unified as I remember it to be. Like, what I'm saying is I don't want our scene to kind of split off the way that Smash is separate from us. It's hard
Yeah,
because you want to encourage people to do events. It's just so hard trying to find that balance, you know. Like you don't want it to take away from it, but you still want to support other things happening around you. Yeah.
okay, I remember a time when Smash used to be held on the same day as Rambats.
Yeah, I very faintly remember those offlines, those Rambats. Yeah, like
It wasn't long after I joined that it switched over, but it was a thing.
yeah. It's funny because I
Um,
said to Dave as well, because he thought like, oh, like he was looking at doing something separate for Street Fighter, like what he does for Damager Cup, but kind of do like a week night thing for the Street Fighter dudes. I mean, do you see any like potential uh fallbacks on running specific events like that?
um, I think the player base is definitely there. The main issue is that it's spread across the whole of New Zealand. So it's like the onlines get quite a lot of entrants. Like it's always like between 20 and 30, like a lot of the time. Um, and it'll be like 3 from Christchurch, I'll say 5 from Hamilton, and then it'll be like 10 Auckland, 10 Wellington.
Yeah.
Um, if you have like a Street Fighter only event, which manages to get like all the players like together in a singular space, then easily successful. Um, but active Auckland players in a singular tournament is pretty hard.
Yeah.
Active, like I think in order of player base, it's definitely Auckland's most popular, Wellington's second most popular. Or actually, it might be the other way around.
You think
Two most
Welling?
popular is Auckland and Wellington.
Okay.
Hamilton third, and Christchurch fourth right now.
How would you describe going to Rambats compared to, say, if you went to something like Tekken Fight Club, or Damager Cup, like when they used to, when they do Damager Cup every year?
Um, it's a bit it's a bit hard to compare because with Tekken I'm sort of in the middle of the learning process, whereas in Street Fighter I'm pretty much
You're the alpha.
everything about the game I sort of know.
Yeah. You're more of a centralized topic with Street Fighter 5. Yeah.
So it's like all the information I'm playing with in Street Fighter is very close to max. And so a lot of the decisions I'm making are almost always optimal. Um, and so the minuscule things I'm improving at are like maybe slightly better. Trying to understand my opponent faster, understanding the ranges they like to play at and how to counter that and all that. So it's yeah, in Tekken I'm still figuring out basic things like what's the most optimal thing to block punish in a scenario. I sidestep something, but maybe I shouldn't push a button just yet because there's more to the string. Those sort of things I'm still learning, but I'm sort of losing track. But the main focus is that, um, yeah, I got at Owners, I'm actively learning Tekken, and the environment is very healthy for helping me learn the game faster because I have
Yep.
access to basically all the top players on Auckland, um, for an entire night. Whereas at Rambats right now, it's not guaranteed that they're gonna show up. But I know that at the very least, if I go to Rambats, Camzes will probably be there. If I turn up, Sky will probably go. In
Bro.
terms of
Yeah, he's like the
practice,
only one that's been showing up recently from Salt Factory, Kamses.
and so it's like I know that like if I go, I have some form of strong practice
Yeah.
where I can play and learn in a way that's different to the way I'm learning at Onas, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that does.
If we run something like Onas for Street Fighter, I'm probably gonna be more inclined
To go the other way? Yeah.
to to just mess around and have fun.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest.
Okay. Very nice. All right. So what you did, you ran that Tekken 7 InterVarsity competition, University of Auckland Esports. So,
Yes.
how because how's that going? Because you're the president, you're running things, right?
Yes, I
And
am the president of this one.
okay, so who have you got in mind for your successor? Do you have a talk about that with someone before you leave, or do you just kind of they appoint someone?
I haven't really thought about it just because um this isn't my last year of university. This is my second to last.
Second to last.
And so obviously like I have staff members in mind who I think are like really good. But some of them will be ending uni at the same time as me. So I can't really pick them as a um surpasser.
Okay. All right.
But but in general, esports club stuff is doing pretty well. Um, I'm trying to do uh bigger singular streams,
Bigger
like build a
singular.
pipe,
Ah, yeah,
like
I
build a
see.
pipe around like a singular stream, as opposed to just going live.
Yeah. Okay.
And hopefully I'm trying to do my best to create spaces for esports at a university level that doesn't really have like the same shine or spotlight as League of Legends or Valorant.
Yeah.
Obviously Tekken's fairly popular at a university level, so it was very easy I could set it up very quickly. And I'm hoping that some of the other staff members who are more familiar with other game titles um, can help or work alongside me to bring that to their games as well.
Yeah. Have you got any funny characters or interesting people in the esports group?
Uh, I think the one most people know is Takia. He is he does a lot of the streaming for us, and he streams most of the events I ask him to. I'm sorry. Um, but for the most part, his job is the fighting game leader. So he manages the brackets for the fighting game tournaments, like the ones that we hold in club.
Yeah.
And yeah, mo most of the anime offender squad will probably
Anime
help.
offenders, yes.
Yes, they definitely know Takia. Um, very cool guy. I'm trying to think. I don't think if you guys have seen him. I think you met him, Idris, Pablo.
Yeah, Pablo, my man. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the vice president before me. I mean I'm president, but like basically him and someone called Andy or Malcolm,
Okay.
they were president vice pres. They were doing really good things. And then they handed it off to me.
So, is your goal to hand? What would be your goal to hand it over to someone with, a set example of, maybe, if you're gonna do this idea, maybe run it like this.
Um, I think I mostly want uh a lot of the club stuff to have processes set up so it's not so hard to get things rolling. So right now our YouTube's pretty inactive. Um, our Twitch is running, but there's still a bit of work to be done on it. Um,
Is it consistency, or is it just like, as you were saying, like finding ways to, like, just actively like pushing it out there, marketing it well?
I think I want things to be uh easier to do, which in itself incentivizes people to do it.
Yeah.
So it's like if think like how Rambo uploads his YouTube videos. Like it's done automatically, right?
No, it's not automatic, but
But there's like a process,
the
right?
feet, the his I guess his flavor, the way he presents his videos, it's always like some epic journey of like a warrior where it's like, as I'm playing this person, I run into this person. The games were very close. I was just like, I just feel like it's such a narrative. It's like one man against the world, and it's like, it's very epic. It's very serious. Every time I read that description, I'm just like, man, you gotta label your videos like one different from the other. Like,
Yeah.
it can't just be like, I'm running online and I run into this guy. Oh, as I was playing this game, as I was playing this character, I ran into this guy. But yeah, it's a flavor, and you can kind of you can assess it and get with it, I guess. But
It's not really like the naming convention or the descriptions of the videos. More just like how he um has gameplay, records, edit, upload sort of thing.
yeah,
I want that process to be more clear cut.
clear cut. So
So when I leave, other people can continue to do it. So I have the VOD saved of the Tekken tournament. Now I just need to like cut it up into a proper compilation
yeah,
and then put it up. And then eventually like I'll upload like the individual matches.
I think there was a time period like during COVID when you could still go out to places without masks and vaccine exemption, like vaccine passes and stuff. I think like some of those rambats were like when we didn't stream them, they were recorded. I think Dave's still got like months and months of like years old footage that he hasn't uploaded to YouTube, and I might be putting him on blast like right now for saying it, but yeah, like, it is hard to keep that, not consistency, but just the fact, as you said, it's like as soon as you do it, record, clip, edit, post, and then it's just keeping that pattern going.
Yeah, a pattern. That's like the other way I like to describe it, because I think like it's a pretty hard task, especially when you have like that much footage. And when it gets bigger and bigger, it probably gets harder to be like, okay, now I'm gonna upload it. Because now there's just like more of it. It gets like harder and harder.
Yeah, like a 40-minute video might take like an hour and a half, but then if you've got like a 5-hour stream, that's going to be a good 13 hours at least. And that's depending on if you've got a really good computer. But yeah, I think that's just an art as well that you get used to. Maybe your streamer friend would get accustomed to that in time. Yeah.
I think the main thing we're happy about is that the footage is still there.
Yeah, that is true.
So like, I mean, I can't say it for sure, but I'm pretty confident that like my Nats 2018 run is still out there.
It's still out there. It probably is. It's probably in Dave's computer. It's probably in Dave's laptop somewhere. Yeah, that one Rambats that I won. Yeah, that's probably stored on Dave's laptop. I'd love to see it, but yeah. Actually, we'll bring it to Combo Breaker Ghost. So you had your remarkable run last, that time. When you think back to then, I can't remember if I'd asked you, but had you decided you were going to go back to Combo Breaker? And if you had any expectations, what were they?
Oh man, like how high are my expectations last time?
It's hard because obviously the outcome of it, but I'm just saying, like, back then when you finished Combo Breaker, you probably said to yourself, "Oh, I definitely want to come back next year." But had you already set expectations prior to finishing like Combo Breaker that year before?
It was weird. I didn't really have any. After finishing a Combo Breaker, I didn't immediately think, okay, now this is what I want to do next Combo Breaker. I kind of just take things as they come. I don't think too deeply about things that are quite far off into the future. But I know before going into this Combo Breaker that I wanted to, at the very least, place higher than I did last time. And looking at my pool, it was.
Yeah, how would you describe that pool?
I think what's scary is not when it looks impossible, but when it looks doable. Because then you have some expectation on you to go through with that. So I looked at my pool, and I know I lost to Joey last time I was at Combo Breaker. But I was like, it was 2-1 then. I could definitely win in a run back. But obviously, if things go bad, then I'll probably have to fight the loser of Burkish and Jot in losers top 64. And if I lost that match, I think I would have tied my placing at 2019, and that's something I was pretty scared of.
Yeah.
But I managed to beat Joey 2-1. It says 2-0 on the Smash GG, but that is incorrect.
But it's 2-1. It was actually a bit closer.
Yeah.
Okay, just stop there for a second. So at this moment, what is your comms looking like? Because you can't see the Twitch comments, but were people messaging you on Twitter? Were people trying to message you? What was happening there?
I think at this point I kind of just stopped checking stuff. At this deep in the bracket, because this is my match against Arturo. This was to make losers top 12.
Yeah, this was yeah. We were all fucking nervous for you on this one.
And Yeah, by this point in the tournament, it's like the nerves are pretty much gone. I'm close to playing how I want to. I made a few mistakes. Especially I don't think I made some mistakes in this game. I think this one's fine.
No, in this set it was fine. I think it's the next one.
Mm. Oh, like right there, I should have heavy kicked. Ugh. Critiquing my own play. I shouldn't. Um,
It
but
was
this matchup, Bison does win. So I was out of all the professionals that I had to play against, I was happy that my bracket aligned to Arturo.
okay. Yeah, Twitch chat was going off, of course. Yeah, so Bison's win this match. Okay. Okay, because let's say that if it didn't work out this way, so if you had been knocked out much later, so let's just say you got eliminated one game, add an extra game, so you didn't lose your first set where you lost. What if you had won that game? Who would you have versed next? What could have the potential outcome have been?
Like if I didn't lose on winners,
Yeah, if you
or
didn't lose in winners, if you actually made it through, then who would you have, like, what could the possible outcome have been that if you made it through that bit?
So I lost to Burkish in winners top 96, round one. Which led me on to my losers run of Ludovic, Joe Rogan, Nephew, Arturo, Filipino man.
Yeah.
Had I beaten Burkish, I would have had to play against Mena.
Yeah, Mena. See, that would have been a cool. That actually would have been a cool matchup to see on stream. You versus him.
I played Mena off stream. It didn't go very well.
Oh, didn't. Oh, damn.
So in the Bison matchup, he plays Sakura, which in my opinion is one of Bison's harder matchups. He beat me 3-0.
Holy shit.
The first two games I lost without winning a round. The third game I won a singular round. Or nobody stole that Crouch Fest tech. It's mine.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was in my mind I was slowly piecing together what I was supposed to do because I'd never fought against a Sakura of that caliber.
Mm.
And then we ran a set with Luke, and I lost that 2-1.
Oh, okay.
But his heavy kick timing after the throw in the corner was almost perfect. He got it basically +1 or 0 on block every time.
Damn.
So he's basically creating a pseudo throw loop.
Yeah.
And it's a bit harder than Dawson's. Dawson's one is a little bit easier, where he does forward throw in the corner, slide, meaty slide, and so forth. And so I probably would have lost if I lost to Mena. I think I had to play. Who did Mena have to play to make it out? Let me just pull up the bracket real quick.
No, it's
Sorry.
all good. Yeah, no, it's just interesting. As a side topic, what did the TENGABOIZ do for you? Did they give you any parting words of wisdom, or were they saying anything particular in Twitch chat?
On me, I'm awful when it comes to traveling overseas. I don't like announce it. I don't tell many people. Or when I do, it's usually when I'm almost about to leave.
Yeah.
So I don't really give them a chance um to say anything. I mean, obviously Tafts knew because I was staying with Tafts.
Yeah.
And but I think they got drunk in Dave's garage and watched it, which is the right way uh of viewing it. So
Yeah.
so bliss.
So bliss.
Bliss TENGABOIZ.
Okay. So I'm guessing that, you finished this match with Arturo Sanchez. You're feeling, yeah, typical. Yeah, I've asked this for you before, but yeah, what were you feeling when you finished this particular match and you made it one step closer?
After this one, I was pretty scared because I was gonna run into pretty much one of the four players I wanted to avoid in the bracket. Being Mono, Filipino man, Chris, CCH, and Brian F.
Brian F. But you had run
Yeah.
it. But I remembered you ran into Brian F in your previous combo breaker run.
Yeah, but he was playing Balrog. At the time, Balrog definitely won the matchup, but it was something I was familiar with. You cannot pay me to play an Oro in a bracket match.
Oh yeah, that's true because he went Oro. That's right. I think he even
Yeah,
played Oro in the team tournament too. Oh, okay.
and so I had no Rose experience, no Oro experience, um, no Fang experience, and Chris's Luke just scares me in general. So I was like, I don't want to run into these four people. But when it comes to like it's top 12, all four of these players are in top 12. It's very hard to avoid them at that point. So it's
Yeah.
like
So what
it
was?
is what
So
it
you
is what it is.
you so you just were outside of top 8. So you were ninth, which is
Yes.
incredible. Um, has any other placing from any tournaments you've entered meant as much to you? Like that level of kind of success?
Probably not. This is easily my most successful tournament. It's like I've always known that I was capable of placing very highly in international tournaments. Um, and even though I usually take names when I go overseas, I know I'm also very capable of doing more. So it's like when I lost that Capcom Cup, I lost 2-1 to Doomsnake and 2-1 to Ricky Ortiz.
Yeah.
So it's like I walked away like, yeah, I took out like Chakate, Mira, Jibril, but I know I could take more. Even a combo breaker like coming ninth is amazing. I know that
Yeah, it
uh,
is. It's
with
yeah.
with more practice, I definitely can beat Filipino man. And going to top 8, I definitely could have beaten up to snuff.
So on a
And
so on a good day, if you're feeling like 100% in the zone, who do you think you can take? You might say Filipino man, but is there anyone else?
um, I think I think I can take everyone pretty much. I really do. But
Uh,
I
that's why I like you,
I
Ghost. You tell it like it is, man. You don't hold back. You're just being honest.
I think I said that in an interview with Yusuf where he was like, if you lived in a stronger region, where do you think you would be in Street Fighter? And I with a dead straight face said probably the best player in the world. And I, getting these results living in a country that's so incredibly far away from everything, I think I can still confidently say that.
Yeah, and there's definitely some people, myself included, who would vouch that as well. But now we'll take it back. Well, we're going to take it forward, I guess, forward into the new age. Obviously, there's one key reason why I wanted to grab you specifically for this. You kind of fit the new age of players that are coming through. So, Street Fighter 6, obviously something that was said in the past that never had too much weight or credibility, but now the official announcement came through. What were you doing, or what was your reaction to it when you saw the announcement trailer?
Um, I think to the very first one, which was
So the
just
Ryu
like
and Luke one? Yeah.
Yeah, there's the Ryu and Luke one. I was like, damn, Ryu's pretty wide. And looking at gameplay, he is pretty wide. I think I'm more excited about um the direction of the story than anything else. The game itself feels like if I'm being completely honest, it looks exactly the same as Street Fighter 5 and when it was announced in beta, just more polished. Like the characters move pretty slowly. The hit stun feels a bit weird. The block stun feels a bit weird. Um, and the main emphasis is obviously the aesthetic. The graffiti effects. Um, the dash cancel mechanic. I think it's drive cancel. I don't
Yeah,
actually know what it's.
the drive system. Yeah,
Mm. The parries. But if it functions like reuse. Oh no, it's frame one. It's frame one in Street Fighter 6.
yeah,
So it's probably going to be a lot stronger than it is in Street Fighter 5. Because it basically functions like reuse V-School 1, but in SF5 it's a 3-frame parry. So there's not actually much reason to use it outside of guaranteed punishes. Um, I guess I'm getting further from the point. Street Fighter 6 looks really clean. I genuinely think it's gonna play a lot like Street Fighter 5. It
yeah,
just needs to be sped up a little bit more.
yeah. That is one comment that people have said, that it looks a bit weighty. It looks quite heavy. Like some of the animations can be a bit more polished, but that comes in time. You did mention the fact that, you know, moving forward in time, because I think for a lot of us, well, for those hardcore Street Fighter fans, that was, I guess, always one of the issues. The game always felt like it was stuck in time, but now that it's finally moving forward, you know, there's the continuity, so there's more freedom, more range to introduce, you know, the development to their stories, the character archetypes. Like, it's really good to just see everyone like designed and aged, aged different now. Yeah, do you have any comments on Ryu's look, Chun's look, Guile's look?
I think they look a lot nicer now that they're older. Obviously I want their classic costumes in. Um, but based on what I've seen from the leaks, I do like the new designs. Like I
Oh,
like Rashid's redesign.
the leaks. Here we are.
Oh,
So
yes.
yeah, please, I do actually want to hear your feedback on these leaks, because I think most people have said they love these designs. Apart from maybe Zangief or Dalsum, who kind of don't look too similar from their original alterations. But yeah, I think the verdict is everyone loves these designs.
Yeah, I know everyone likes to keep Zangief in the wrestling trunks. But I think it's pretty common for wrestlers to move towards pants as they get older.
Yeah,
Like I know AJ Styles stopped wrestling and I mean he wasn't wearing Zangief trunks, but they were like shorts. Now he wears full legs, tights. Who else? Cody Rhodes now wrestles in full length tights. Obviously they're not the same age as how Zangief is here,
yeah,
but usually it's like the general progression of a wrestler. Um, DJ looks better than he ever has.
yeah. He actually looks really serious. He doesn't look like a joke. Well, not a joke, but he doesn't like, you know, say man, you want to throw down? I don't know. It just he looks far better. Like, yeah, he looks way better.
Uh, Rashid looks nice. Akuma, I like that they gave him like the full beard this time. Because like the problem wasn't the mane. The problem was that he just had like no facial hair to go along with that mane.
Yeah,
So it was like just full on neck beard and then extension around the rest of the head. The new characters look pretty interesting. I'm interested to know what JP is. Um,
yeah,
I'm a bit. Oh, actually, no, that was pretty obvious. Fang's had an apprentice. From the Shadaloo website since the game came out, so it was very obvious that he wasn't gonna be returning. Um, I'm not too sure if she'll have the same sort of playstyle of hybrid rushdown zoner with yeah, Fang has a weird archetype.
yeah,
Um, he's actually like he's very close to Bison in gameplay, ironically enough. But yeah, those are pretty much my comments on
mm,
the SSX roster.
yeah,
Um, it's nice that I mean they're still sort of milking the Street Fighter 2 aspect because all 8 OG characters are making their return. But at least they're pushing the story past Street Fighter 2 era.
That's a very fair comment, but then I think back when Street Fighter 3 came out, the first version, there was that blowback because people didn't resonate with the game because the original 8 World Warriors were there. I was going to ask you, do you think it would be the same case today if they didn't include the Classic 8? So basically, if the roster was just Cammy, DJ, Rashid, Judy, Ed, Akuma, and then the new 8. Like, would people like what I'm saying is, would it be acceptable to not include the original 8 World Warriors?
I think the problem with Street Fighter 3 was that Alex was too divisive. And in the same way, for Street Fighter 6, I think Luke is very divisive. Luke also, in my opinion, feels like a throwaway because, in my opinion, Ed was supposed to be the poster child.
You actually think Ed was supposed to be the Street Fighter 6 poster child? Really?
Yes,
Interesting. Okay. Well,
because he's like Neo Shadowloo. He fits very directly into the story. Luke is just who?
yeah. Well, when he got announced for Street Fighter 5, I thought the same thing. But looking at his redesign, like looking at his design for 6, I'm thinking, Jesus, that's how he should have looked originally. But you mentioned Neo Shadowloo, and that's another thing because obviously your beloved M. Bison unfortunately may not be making it into the car. And I know that doesn't really affect you in any way, but Neo Shadowloo, this idea of, you know, Bison exists, his power exists, psycho power, so his body is physically gone, but he still exists within the psycho power of the people who wield it. Which is why I'm kind of curious if there's anything with a side story that they might pursue, especially with JB, because confirmed with the leaks is his backstory that he may be the potential, like the original teacher that taught, you know, Soul Power, you know, so that connection to Rose and M. Bison.
Oh.
Well, that's what I've heard. I don't know if you've heard. I don't know if you've known that leak, but apparently there's, you know, because the reference that Rose and Bison learnt this power from a certain master, and someone said, well, the only way that this guy can have psycho power is if he could be the original master. So, yeah, maybe he could be another potential, you know, psycho crusher character that you might want to look into.
I think.
And he's Russian, which is so weird. Like, I don't know, just, yeah, he don't look really Russian, you know, he doesn't really, yeah, he dresses very clean.
I think for Street Fighter 6, I just need a character with a decent amount of health and mostly safe pressure or safe offense.
Okay.
And that's about all I need. Most of my secondaries in Street Fighter 5 are glass cannon, rushdown characters, but getting consistent results with them is always going to be a lot harder than picking a character like Bison, who has you're very consistently going to get a lot of offensive situations, and his buttons are very, very strong and neutral. The only downside to him is his walk speed and his anti-airs.
Okay.
I don't think they'll make an archetype like Bison again, just because it's such an uncommon mix of insane amount of plus frames, very long throw range, zero walk speed.
Zero walk speed.
Zero walk speed.
Dashes and phases. I mean, come on, you at least would want that for the JP character, right?
Having a dash with iframes is nice, but it's not necessary. It's won me some situations, but it's never been like game changing.
Yeah.
Not including the V trigger one dash. That one's entirely different because it actually goes through opponents.
Okay. So, if you can just, what would you say are your thoughts of what you've seen from all the Street Fighter 6 clips? And what are some personal expectations that you would like this game to fulfill? And you can relate back to Street Fighter 5, or it could just be something, like, just something about you personally in terms of how to learn a fighting game.
I think the only thing I ask is keep shimmies in. Shimmies are cool. a lot of anti-fireball options I'd like. But also don't make the fireball DP characters too weak. Because, I mean, Ryu... I'll tell everyone who picks up Street Fighter 5, don't learn the game with Ryu. You think you're learning fundamentals, but the actual strongest parts of the character are his forward dash. And that's genuinely his strongest feature, is his forward dash. And you will, without a doubt, if you learn the game with Ryu, become forward dash, DP mashing,
Do you feel
fake,
like
fake footsie player.
do you feel there's I mean, obviously, like, there's so much hype right now for Street Fighter 6. Do you think it's a bit excessive? Do you think it's the right amount of hype? I personally like the changes. I'm not a Street Fighter, but I love the things that they're doing. You know, like Chun-Li has a stance now. Ryu has that Denjin, like that little unique Ryu Denjin
like,
thing. Yeah, and they gave Gala a just frame Sonic Boom.
I'm interested to see how that works. Is it like if you charge and let it go the moment you get charged?
It looks like it's frame perfect, so like just frame, right? So you have to, yeah. Do you release it on the perfect frame or do you go forward on the perfect frame? I don't know, but yeah, I quite like the changes that they're making, and even Jamie's one. You know how they're giving him this weird, not weird, but it's a really cool, you know, drunk mechanic. When he's 4 drinks in, a lot of his normals and stuff just get, you know, extra strong. He gets
Turns into Nikali.
yeah, he turns into a handsome Nikali, a Chinese version of Nikali. Yeah, I don't know. And there's also something else as well, which I mean, I think Maximilian might have commented on it, and I wish they had done it. I feel like Sean could have been a great poster child for Street Fighter 6. If there was a rivalry, I wished it was Luke versus Sean. But Luke versus Jamie is okay. I mean, they can be rivals, but I could kind of see the Luke versus Sean thing happening.
Man, get Luke out of there. Just chuck in Sean. Sean versus Jamie.
Yeah, or that too. Yeah, I mean,
Like
yeah.
they had a blonde character with a decent story lined up for the game. I don't know. Luke ticks 0 boxes.
Mm. But then
He came out of nowhere.
he,
No one.
yeah, he kind of did, eh? I don't know. Do you think it's also a bit of that game developer thing where, like, okay, we need a hero. You know, he's got to be white, blonde, of a certain age. You know, a real go-getter. Obviously, Sean doesn't fit that classification.
But that's what I mean. They had that, and his name's Ed.
Yeah, Ed. He uses psycho power. Yeah, but nah. The drive gauge just looks really. It's a really interesting concept. I mean, I guess essentially it's a tug of war for all your resources, both offensive and defensive, or both offensive and defensive. And I think it's great. You know, like you don't. It really. Like, I think it's going to introduce another level of meta management, which maybe not other games have implemented before.
Yeah, I think what's really weird is you're pretty much always gonna have access to a super
Yeah,
because you do EX moves with the drive gauge, not your super meter. But at the same time, if you're using your meter on offense, you can't use it for defense.
yeah,
So it's sort of taking like the ideas that they had for V trigger or the V meter and applying it to a more general game plan. Because the idea behind um the V system was um you have a V skill, which for most characters it isn't an overwhelmingly strong. It's not an overwhelmingly strong tool. It's usually like a special move that's okay at best. For some characters, it's really strong, like Balrog. It's one of the best anti-fireballs. But for Bison, it's like a 7-frame parry, and it's a fireball absorbing thing. So it's not incredibly useful outside of a couple matchups. But you use this to build the V meter, or you lane crush counters toward the V meter, or you take damage. And then you can spend it on defensive resources. Nowadays it's V reversal and V shift. Um, or you can save it all for a highly offensive comeback. Um, with this drive system, you can sort of use it towards extending your combos, or you can save it for like the focus attacks. Like you can use it to extend combos with the dash cancel, or you can save it, yeah, for like the focus attacks and the parries. So it's sort of taking that element of the V system and applying it in a more general sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you see any problems? Like, do you see any potential problems in the drive system? Or do you think there's something that maybe the developers might not have considered from all the footage and all the things that you've seen?
I'm worried that they're trying to make artificial hype, like just by throwing parries and they're hoping they're gonna create something.
Mm. But then
Does that make sense?
but then the parries don't seem too crazy, I think. Like the perfect parries, like we've been told, like that's extremely hard to pull off. But the general parries, yeah, they don't seem like, if you can anticipate an attack, you can parry, you can build back all your drive meter. But if you do a parry and you're not doing, you're not parrying anything, it's a failed parry, then you do lose the drive bar. I guess it's just having a better awareness or understanding of, what you do and how much drive bar you risk losing if you're unsuccessful.
Um, I think with how the game is sort of, oh wow, I didn't notice that. Juggle stayed on the cross like it. That's crazy. Um,
Oh, yeah,
like there are ways around the parry.
yeah,
Obviously, you can bait it out.
yeah. And there's ways around the drive impact as well. You can just do, just do like your standard moves, standard pokes, but then I think it's got 3 hits of armor, but against the wall you will get stunned or you'll get wall splat. Like that's another feature in the game.
You can parry
Oh, and you
the
can parry it too. Yeah, you can parry it too.
yeah,
So yeah, you're not without options.
like I think I don't know. I'm always gonna be wary of a frame one parry. Gills one is frame two, and that one's scary enough. Same as and Colleen's an EX, I think is frame one. Giving every character the potential to frame one parry something always be pretty scary. Especially like most characters' pokes I think are gonna be pretty obvious.
Yeah,
So obviously Ryu will be chucking a lot of crash medium kick fireball in neutral. Chun will be throwing a lot of heavy punches, especially now that it converts on counter hit. Oh, but I have a feeling it'll be taken away. That
yeah,
seems pretty ridiculous.
yeah.
Um,
The parry ball, the fireball game changes like immensely because of the parry, and then the throw tech as well. The throw tech game, because when you break it, I see now that you're actually like sweep range
and
now. You're
like,
not toe to toe.
yeah, that's crazy. I need to watch more footage just to see how it takes in the corner.
Yeah.
Cause
Are you a fan of the stun mechanic in the corner or the wall splat?
I don't really see too. I don't I don't see how it changes much if I'm being honest. It is nice to have more things to do. SF5 on release was a very bare bones game. Um, like looking back, a lot of even the more simple stuff, like um, what's a good example? Um, Jury's corner combos, heavy Fuhan to DP. That didn't exist. Uh, what's another character? Urian. He didn't get a cross up until season 2. But he couldn't do medium punch, crouch medium punch on normal hit in season 1. If anyone's ever gone back to try the trials. Um, who else? Balrog. He couldn't do he couldn't buffer crouch heavy punch into Screw Upper because Screw Upper was a charge move in season 1. Like there's a lot of things that just feel very barren on release. And so having all of these options presented to you this early on feels nice. But I guess at the same time, in the demonstrations of Street Fighter 5, there were so many moves that were taken out, especially for Chun-Li. The launching TK legs, the air combos that got reduced. Ryu, I think, stayed the same, but we didn't get to see much of him. His was just an awkward looking crouch medium kick.
Yeah,
and
well,
just general.
yeah, and his donkey kick is called High Blade Kick.
And so, yeah, I'm more excited about how many people are interested in playing Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 5 felt like it was built up off the hype of Street Fighter 4. So people would watch Street Fighter 4 tournaments and then be like, all right, Street Fighter 5 is my chance to experience this.
Yeah.
And then when the game came out, it was just, what?
Yeah, exactly.
They got hit by throw loops, busted tears, so an overwhelming amount of Nash, Ryu, and Mika, and Chun. Can't forget Chun. Where everyone just wanted to play. I guess everyone wanted to try the alpha characters, so they wanted to try Karen. Karen was strong, I guess.
Yeah.
Karen, Brady, Nash. All the grappler mains were down bad because Geef sucked. I mean, there was Mika, but hardcore grappler mains usually gravitated towards Zangief. Whereas Street Fighter 6 feels like it's building its own hype. People are really getting behind the game itself and not just the idea of competing in Street Fighter 4,
Yeah.
which is nice. And I'm excited to see if it does bring any new young blood in. There's some upstart 14-year-old who thinks he can
Because he can
do really well in Street Fighter.
Yeah, come toe to toe with one of the New Zealand legends, GhostChips. Yeah. 14 years old. Could be 12, man. Yeah. It's always about getting new blood. But one last thing, though, is Maximilian did say, you know, for people who are very strong in Street Fighter 5, who rely on their mechanics, their shimmies and V-reversal systems, aren't gonna love Street Fighter 6 at all. Do you agree with that, or do you have your own personal take on players who transition from 5 to 6?
I think at high level SF5, it mostly boils down to who can poke and counter poke the best. And from what I've seen, the game heavily rewards whiff punishment because you get counter hits from whiff punishing, which to me is pretty insane. So most of the best players in the game, or most of the best players in SF5, just from that feature alone, I think are gonna succeed heavily in Street Fighter 6. Because of the sheer amount of counter poking that happens in Street Fighter 5. Like if you know how to place your buttons, you can win simply by pushing a light button into a special at the right ranges. And on the better scale of things, if you can start getting heavy whiff punishes, medium whiff punishes on counter hit, yeah, nah, you're not gonna live. And since SF5 really reduced the amount of defensive options you have, um, it'll really it'll make wonders when you are given the more defensive freedom. So it's like if these top level SF5 players are really strong in neutral, very good at with punishment. SF6 is rewarding that, so they're probably gonna knock you down more than you'll knock them down. On the very off chance that you do knock them down, because SF5's risk reward punishment is so it's so hard. SF5 risk reward is very hard. You're with a throw and you'll die. Um, but if you watch high level SF5, they still throw tech. They're still gonna take the throw. But they genuinely understand when you want to throw and when you want to shimmy, and they will button you when you walk back 9 times out of 10. Just because like you know, their risk reward management is just like that. They know how much damage they can take and still win. Like they know how risky they can play on offense and all that sort of stuff. And if you give them more defensive freedom, I think they'll just adjust that risk reward. You might get away from them more often now that you have a 1 frame parry, but that doesn't stop them from how many times they're probably gonna whiff punish you.
All right. Yeah, well, the risk reward thing, I think that's what it comes down to. It's that, if you're going to call out something, you better be confident and spend your bar wisely, because then if you don't, because I like how the drive bar reduces when you're actually blocking, so it's actually forcing engagement, as you said, it's enforcing, the engagement in the neutral. Yeah, I still feel like there's stuff about the drive system that we're not really fully in knowledge about yet, but I mean in time. But yeah, no, I like the drive system. It's interesting.
If they if they put a character like Bison in, I reckon that guy's gonna melt the drive.
Yeah, well, yeah, offensively or defensively?
Oh, definitely offensively. Bison as a defensive character isn't very strong. Um, he just has tons of plus frames. So axe, jab, axe, jab, axe. Yeah, that'd be a scary time. But at the same time, there's a 1 frame parry, so axe might not be that reliable in a game like Street Fighter 6. But that's okay.
Oh,
He
actually,
has a
sorry,
lot of
you go
normal.
yours. Yeah.
Oh no, that's it.
Just actually, one last question. The drive bar system, from your knowledge of the Street Fighter characters, who do you think would actually benefit from it the most, or who do you think would be really strong in the drive system?
Um, I think obviously like the main ones are EX moves. How does having access to a parry affect them? I think the focus attack won't be used that much. I really don't, just because of how slow it is. Unless you're reading something. Who? I guess the way I'd put it is, who has the best EX moves in SF5 and who would benefit the most from a 1 frame parry? I am leaning towards Guile,
Kyle.
just because a character of his archetype. But at the same time, you can parry his fireballs, so it's like
Yeah.
a trade-off.
Mm.
Um, but Guile's always had strong buttons, so I'm gonna say Guile.
Okay. Kyle.
Um, Zangief, if he has movement options,
Mm.
because like, do you go? The thing about like in 3S, characters can fully succeed because of parry, no matter how low tier they are. Obviously, like you're in a way better position if you play Chun, Yun, Makoto, Ken, but lower tier characters can live purely based on parry. Um, so a character like Hugo can really murk you. So if Geef plays sort of like Hugo, but has more movement options than Hugo. I mean, Hugo has like run, and I guess he can clap, but his walk speed is just way too slow.
Yeah.
Um, so if Geef has like green hand, knee hop that doesn't have nerfed recovery, they've nerfed that move like twice. That's crazy to me. Um, a medium punch with ridiculous range, a crouch jab that combos into itself, then I think that character could be busted.
Okay.
Um, I don't see how Rashid would benefit from a one frame parry. The character is pretty well rounded without it. Like I don't see where it fits. Whereas Gif can get around projectiles with parry and green hand. Um, Akuma has a parry. That's more for universal catching. That's not really in Street Fighter 6, so I don't really see it. Hmm. Yeah, I'm leaning towards
Leaning towards
Guile,
Guile.
Guile and Gif. Guile
Okay.
and Gif, yeah.
Okay.
I think there's two characters to watch for in Street Fighter 6 based on what I've seen.
Well, no, thank you again, GhostChips, for coming on, and we'll wrap it up with the usual final round wrap-up questions. So, first one is, have you ever paid for something you regret?
Oh, yeah. I can't remember. Oh, I think I paid a bit too much for King of Fighters 14.
Hey, it's a pretty alright game. Well,
It's an,
how much did you pay?
I think like standard pricing. Like I just didn't buy it when it was on special.
Oh, so you bought it at like 120, 110, 120.
Not 110, but I think maybe 60.
Okay.
Just still a bit much for a game that I don't really touch.
Yeah.
I ended up selling it anyways, which I guess is another
Sweet.
which adds to the regret.
Alright, next one. What is or was the underrated thing about M. Bison and Street Fighter 6?
EX Blast, easily. It's slow moving with projectile, and it's pretty much just free corner space. Oh, it's free screen space at the very least. Um, and the main reason why it flew under the radar for so long, it still does, is because everyone just complains about EX Scissor as the free get in, which it's not. EX Blast is the free get in. And EX Reverse. They complain about EX Reverse, but compared to EX Blast, EX Reverse is there are way more damaging punishes for it.
Okay.
So yeah, EX Blast,
EX
easily.
Blast. Alright, next. Which poverty fighting game do you like?
Um, it's the browser fighting game, Tough Love Arena. It's probably my favorite poverty fighting game. Again, that game's pretty fun. If anyone wants to play me in it.
Alright, next. If M. Bison could return in Street Fighter 6, what would you write for the backstory?
Um, I think story-wise, I don't want him to return just because I like the idea of Street Fighter progressing forward in story. But if it were to come back, uh, I'd like him to take over Gil's body after he's defeated.
Interesting. Okay.
Right now I don't actually know how Gil loses in Street Fighter 3.
Mm.
It actually escapes my mind
Yeah.
how that managed to happen.
Yeah, well, that I guess that question has to be answered as well, because we're just assuming that, like, the canon wise, like, yeah, this is after Street Fighter 3 and he's defeated, but yeah.
Like I thought everyone just like followed Moses to that like red and blue island. Like
Mm.
how did they stop that from happening?
All right, and finally, who is your current waifu? You made jokes
Why?
about what it was like, female Terry, and I think you mentioned like Julia.
That was at the time because it was back when what they were doing. It was that King of Fighters game, right?
Yeah, female All Stars or
Where they
something.
had, like,
Yeah.
female Skullomania, female Terry. Waifu? I don't know. I haven't watched any anime in ages. And I'm not like a frequent anime watcher, but I usually try to like watch at least like one every half a year. Uh, I think the last one I watched was is it Sonobisco? There wasn't a character that really stood out to me though. At least not like to the same degree as Matt. Uh, yeah, I'd say no waifu for now. There's no fighting games that I'm like actively playing where I'm playing like a female character or anything.
Okay.
Like
No,
what
that's,
Taken 7 is Feng my waifu?
no, no. If you say that, I will actually come over to your house and beat the shit out of you. Like, no thing. No, please don't.
I'm married to the back
I
cat,
regret
though.
that decision. Okay, I've told everyone. I regret telling you to play thing. Nah.
I just like the easy life, you know. What more can I say?
Hey, no, honestly, dude, thanks again for coming on. Do you have anything to put out there? Anything you want to say before we wrap up?
I guess next stop is hopefully Evo. Still in the process of getting that done. Um, see me in Street Fighter 6. See me in the League of Legends fighting game when that comes out. And I guess I'm practicing it up now. But see me in Tekken 7 as well. Come to Nats, come to locals. Yeah.